Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 33-year veteran of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. And it is Tuesday. That's usually our crowdfunding or industry talk tonight, but we have a guest this week. I'm joined by both my regular co-hosts on Tuesdays, Batman Chris Hall and Dr. Ebony Toussaint, RN.
Thank you so much for coming on, Ebony. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you.
Yeah, are you cold, hon?
And I've been a little down today, so this has been like a hug to me.
Oh,
so.
Okay.
Very cute. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, my hands are in here too. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Yeah, where are you at that it's that cold?
Just by my friend's office, and this is by like the window on campus.
That explains it.
But it's Tuesday, so I definitely have on like my, time and relative dimension in space, police box earrings and my sweater. So for all my
very cool.
Tuesday.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, let's give our audience a little bit of an idea of who you are and what you have contributed to comics to date.
Oh, goodness. Thank you for that question. I've probably been in the comic space, at least like public facing for the past few years, thanks to my friend and podcast partner, Karla Medrano. She's a fellow nurse, wife, and mom, and comic book writer and creative. She wrote Luna, Queen of the Maruvians, and she's just super duper incredible. So shout out to Karla. I think I reached out to her online a few years ago, and we were like, oh, let's do it. Health topics and popular culture things happening, and just talking about comic books and graphic novels, and just like as a form of storytelling and how we can maybe use it in our practice. And so she does a lot of cardiac and hospice nursing, and I'm an emergency trauma nurse. But people always think because of our podcast, Ororo Comics Podcast, named for Aurora Monroe, Storm, or Spidey's mutant. People think that that's like a lot of our introduction to comics. And I did watch a lot of X-Men 97. I did read a lot of X-Men growing up, but I also loved Xena, Warrior Princess. And so that's actually the first comic that I purchased, Topps Comics, 1997. So she's a badass with a blade. Sorry, this is family friendly.
No, you can go. You can swear.
I mean, because who does not like a woman with a blade, right? So after the Absolute Wonder Woman covers, just as an aside with the blades, I love a woman with a blade. Okay. So I'm a writer. I cannot make magic with my hands the way that you do, Lewis, the drawing and the art. That is beautiful. But I'm a writer, and I view fiction as a form of resistance. I think comics have added a richness to my life as a scientist and a nurse that I wouldn't have otherwise. I think being able to have the creative form of expression, it adds like a breadth and depth to my work. Shout out to my colleagues in the Comic Studies Society as well, in the Comic Arts Conference at San Diego Comic-Con International. It's been really great being able to explore comics as like a medium. And it's really just truly the comic book space has just been a space of pure joy, I think, and empathy. And so when people talk about wanting to have conversations around health and popular culture, I love the comic book space and like the nerd community, because I think there's a lot of empathy here. Because I think in some way or another, most of us have probably felt weird or like outcasts, whether we like to collect or cosplay or, read comics or super into like anime and things like that. I think there's something for everybody here, right? So my contribution, like I said, just as a research scientist and registered nurse, I've been creating my Webtoon, my webcomic series, Crash Cart.
Which we'll look at in a little bit.
Yeah, so that's been my most exciting contribution to date, being able to talk about cardiometabolic disease in a way. I love horror as well, so I styled it as a retro classic horror. Shout out to Josh Jones, who I met at a monster convention. And so I loved his artwork and his work on like Frankenstein and just different things like that. And so I really wanted that traditional like horror type look and feel from the 50s and 60s. And so he was able to help me conceptualize that. My letterer, Jeremy Darby, shout out to him. My colorist, Alexandria Batchelor. And the line work was done by Will Altman. He's a security guard at my hospital, and we just like sketched it out one night. I'm a night nurse, so night shift is the right shift. And so we just sketched it out, and he's like, let's do it. And now we have Crash Cart. So yeah, I hope I answered your question, Louis. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're just fine. We're gonna focus a little bit more on the Comic Society though to start. You're doing comic studies as a historian, and you're also like showing comics as an educational tool.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
What drove you to that side of it? Because most fans don't really perceive comics as educational. Myself, when I started doing comics back in the early 90s, I did a comic book called Space of the Alien that was about the kids meeting the alien, and he takes them all over different cultures. And, so you learn about all the different cultures on the world. Then you go out to outer space and learn about the planets and stuff like that. Very difficult sell to comic book fandom. They didn't register that. But you had to market it to schools. You had to market it to libraries. You had to market it to daycare centers, other things like that. That's the kind of stuff that the group you're talking about focuses on, and it's usually not even talked about at San Diego Con. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So I honestly, I think I had a whole other presentation prepared because, like I mentioned, I like monsters, and I'm from a small ethnic group called Gullah Geechee people. So
we'll talk about them too. Don't worry, hon.
Yeah, so we're on the Sea Islands off the coast of the Carolinas and Georgia and Florida, and so I like a lot of hoodoo and ethnobotany. And so that's been, we can see Brother Voodoo, we can see Roots of Madness, we got Bitterroot, things like that. But I was like, you know what? I changed my entire talk for San Diego Comic-Con for the Comics Arts Conference, probably, I think, the morning of. Because I was like, you know what? This feels much more important. I was pissed off. Something happened in July. I don't remember what, but who knows, with everything, gestures broadly at everything happening. And so I was like, I, as a side, just need to take a stand right now to talk about misinformation and disinformation and the difference between those two things, and talk about microorganisms, because anybody who knows me knows I love microbiology, and at some point I'm going to talk about microbes. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to talk about Superman and Supergirl, because it's the summer of Superman, right? So, shout out to James Gunn. And that's actually the movie we all went to see at Comic Study Society, which is at Michigan State University this summer. We all went to go see it together. So that was really, really fun. It felt like stepping into a comic book, like that movie.
It was amazing. I love that movie. So.
I love that my boys get to grow up with this Superman as their Superman.
I'll see it later this week.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So almost everybody that I know in the medical field, when they go through microbiology, they have this epiphany, and they're like washing their hands. They don't want to touch this. They don't want to, did you go through that? They're like, oh my God, they're everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. And you can even do this really cool thing with kids where you show them the glow stuff and you have them put it on their hands, and they can see how effective hand washing is. And
yeah,
but yes, absolutely. And then you're like, okay, I got to get over a little bit. I got to touch people a little bit. Because we can all go there and be a little bit germaphobes, but you eventually got to go hey, we've been fighting off various microbes since the minute we're born, and your immune system's going to build it. You're going to be all right. That's what immunizations are for. That's what, again, a hoodoo, elderberry, echinacea, life everlasting, all the things. So you get over it a little bit. But yes, wash your hands, people. And so I actually got to put that up at Comic-Con and talk to people about germ theory and microorganisms, and that, hey, you guys, we've been talking about this for over a century now. And so we've established germ theory. You need to use soap and water. It's not the temperature of the water, but it's how well you wash. Get under your nails, scrub, envelope the viruses in there, wash it away, then fully dry your hands. So I love that Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, issue 2, 2021. There's this entire beautiful sequence. You can go down a rabbit hole online. People loved it. So we're really hoping when they adapt it for the screen that they actually include that hand washing sequence, and why it was so important for Kara to show Ruthie how to do that. I also got to talk about Superman. And so when you talk about me doing research, one of my biggest projects that I really want to do is like basically a tribute to Superman, like do a full dissertation. I love Philip Kennedy Johnson. Shout out to him. He's been super sweet and welcoming to me in the Superman space. I got to meet him at San Diego and got to go to the Superman panel with him and Andrew Iden and hang out with the people from the Superman Museum, who've also been wonderful. Then I got to shop at a boutique named after Superman. I can't think of it, the name of it right now, but I got a cute pouch from there. But yeah, that's like my whole thing is like really getting to visit the Superman statue, like this coming summer, the Billy Ireland collection, going to Metropolis and doing all the stuff for Superman this summer. And it's actually started out as a dare from a friend that kind of like, he talked about Superman so much. And I was like, oh my God, you know, there's other superheroes, right? His name's Robert. He's a historian. So shout out to Robert, Dr. Green. I love you, bro. But he talked about Superman so much. I was like, you know what? Fine. I'm going to do it. I'm going to write Superman someday. So, and lo and behold, I meet Philip Kennedy Johnson and I'm like, oh my God, am I going to really write Superman someday? So again, just shout out to PKJ and having his support, because I'm like, oh my God, now these crazy people are going to make me write Superman. But what's funny that I will say is I've actually fallen in love with the character. I'm just going to admit it. Again, not my choice, not my how I got into comics. We even battled with Robert in our comic book club, you know, DC versus Marvel and all the other, you know, comics houses. He's our resident DC guy and we're all like, boo. And so, but I realized that when I think about the characters that I want to write, I was like, oh, Green Lantern. I'd like to write Green Lantern. Oh, you know, I'd actually like to write Superman, maybe Teen Titans. And so I was like, I actually do like DC. Like, okay, the universe is
which Green Lantern?
Just which Green Lantern?
Mm-hmm.
Sojourner Mullion. Sojo, I call her.
Okay, yeah.
N.K. Jemisin. Okay, because I'm a writer, and I love science fiction. So N.K. Jemisin being this like Hugo Nebula Award-winning writer.
Right. The only person who's won the Hugo 3 consecutive years in a row in the history of mankind, and yet the fanboys go, "Yeah, she's a black woke woman. She don't know how to write, and it's about Hal Jordan." And you're just like,
did you read it? Like, y'all, the text was brilliant. And it was very text heavy. I give people that disclaimer because I actually just put out Far Sector on a list of comics I'd recommend to people who want like a gateway into reading comic books. Mm-hmm. And so to be fair to people too, I think it was maybe her first time writing a comic book. Sure. But again, it was very text heavy, but I thought the back and forth dialogue was very helpful. And it was a rich text. It was a very well done story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got to talk about
there's a reason why it was collected and put in the compact comic series.
Right? That trade, the special trades everywhere. I probably still have versions of it that I still need to purchase because it was that good to me. And so I appreciate it as a Black queer woman.
That was actually the first Green Lantern series I bought since Hal Jordan became Parallax in '93.
See, good for you, Lewis. I knew you were good people.
Well, it was about, you know, I don't like Hal Jordan and the Mood Ring Brigades. I think it's not well conceived on a lot of levels. And then I was like, oh, this is going to be a reimagination of the Mosaic world. And the other writers were jealous, didn't want the PhD scientist, you know, psychologist to have the character of John Stewart, who was the lead in Mosaic. So she has to create her own character in Joe Moline. Okay, I'm fine with that because I trust, you know, Mora. And it was like, yeah, okay, I'll read that. That's worth reading, you know.
I love the Mood Ring Brigade. I love that. Like, they've done every single emotion. I'm waiting for them to do like the horny Green Lantern.
What color is horny?
Just take on willpower.
Yes. Now I need to go find Jimmy Robinson's drawing of his character. I can't think of the name of the character. It's Bad Girl Thief character. She stole Hal Jordan's power ring and made a dildo and raped him with it.
Oh my God. This is not family friendly.
Well, I'm just saying.
Ready. I was not ready. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
That's okay.
Well, back to family friendly. Everyone check
Yes,
your
let's do
vitamin
that.
D levels right now because it's very gloomy and rainy, at least here in South Carolina. And we just had that super cold moon, the closest moon we'll have, I think, until like 2042. And so I feel like everybody's all kind of out of whack, you know, seasonal anxiety and depression and all that. So. But I talked about Superman this summer and the photonucleic effect and the fact that he uses our yellow sun, because, you know, those who are fans know there's multiple suns, and that's how he gets his powers. But I talked about us regular humans, not superhumans or aliens like Clark Kent, and our need for the sun for vitamin D synthesis or biosynthesis, which happens in the liver, and how lower levels can lead to hypertension and then the development of cardiometabolic disease, like heart disease and different things like that. And so it was really nice to be able to connect those dots for people and seeing like the aha in the audience, and even having like physician colleagues come up afterwards and say, hey, I'm a physician and I'm in this space too. And I think graphic medicine was present as well. So I've been getting more involved with the Graphic Medicine Society, which they actually were co-founded by a nurse. And so she's known as the comic nurse. And so I don't know that a lot of people know that about because it says graphic medicine, but there's also, if you look at the drawing of like the logo, there's a nurse actually like doing her like super pose and carrying the medical bag, which I think is really cool. So because nurses, we kind of lead the way. We were like the front line, like the backbone, front, back, side, roof, flooring of the healthcare system. So our healthcare system couldn't function without us, even though they're trying to say we're not a profession anymore. I don't know. My Master of Science doesn't count. My Master of Public Health doesn't count anymore. I don't know. Am I a professional? I don't know, you guys. I don't know.
Well, you're a professional. Linda McMahon is definitely not.
So
go ahead, Chris.
They've from what I know, they've been slowly like doing away with LPNs. Is that a thing where you work, or is there still LPNs that function there, or?
I will say I have colleagues who talk about this a lot. Shout out to Sarah Warren and Pat. Oh goodness, Pat Max, what's Pat's last name? They've been talking a lot about this, I think, across various platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, about the educational differences between different types of nurses. Right. And so that's not a space that I specifically am familiar with. Like I said, I'm from public health and biomedical research sciences. And so I do, my understanding, again, my very limited understanding and the differences in nursing is like, there's like diploma, like nurses, like licensed practical nurses, and then there's registered nurses. So I'm a registered nurse, and technically I entered at the master's level because it's to prepare like people who are I'm a second career nurse, and so I already came in, you know, my middle life, and I already have a career. I already had my doctorate, another master's, and a bachelor's degree, and so this made more sense from I'm going into more advanced researching since I'm already a researcher. But there is some discrepancies around making sure nurses don't just have an associate's degree or diploma, but that they actually have a bachelor's or higher. I'm not sure of the data around differences. Again, everything should relate, in my opinion, to patient safety and quality of care. And so I'm not sure of the evidence. I want to say from my colleagues, I mentioned Sarah and Pat, that there's limited evidence on any type of meaningful differences between a bachelor's prepared nurse or an associate's or LPN versus a registered nurse. So that in both of them are for nurses. And so I'll always stand up for my licensed practical nurse colleagues. I think nurses, we have enough, I feel like, problems outside the profession for us to do any type of infighting. And I will always take the back of my colleagues. I'm an emergency trauma nurse, and there's always like a little kind of scuffles, kerfuffles between us and like the floor nurses, for example. And I always make it a point when I'm trying to give report or transporting patients to say like, hey, we're on the same team here. Let's take it up with the C-suite people. Let's fight the people that really have the millions and the power, and let's make sure we all are fighting for more staff and higher pay and more balanced acuity between patient assignments. Like, I'm not going to fight you, nurse colleague. Let's fight the people that need to,
Absolutely.
Right.
But thank you for that question. I appreciate that, Fabian.
Yeah, you were saying there, how they've been trying to just take all the sciences away and take away all your credibility. Keep in mind who's doing that.
Yeah. Trump.
Well, no, forget Trump. I ain't worried about Trump. I'm talking about McMahon.
Yeah.
I'm talking about bitch McMahon.
Is this like a wrestler person?
Yes, the wife of Vince McMahon is the head of the education department of this country.
Yes.
You know she's the whole family is delusional based on their programming, so you know that anything that she's going to come up with is delusional.
What happened to wrestlers? I loved wrestling.
I like wrestling too when it's done well, but it's still, the people who run those things, they're not they aren't mentally there. I'm telling you.
Someone put it best. They were like, to all the people that loved math and science in school growing up, like they're like, that's why I trust them to do things, because I didn't like math and science. And I'm like, thanks somebody for saying that. Like, thank you. Those of us who always like placed first in the science fair, who always loved math and went to grad school to get advanced degrees in these areas. It's like, yeah, exactly. We didn't waste all this schooling so we could lie to you. I'm like, pharma's not paying me anything to give you an immunization, and actually we're losing money. Why would we want you to get immunized when I'd rather you get sick then and come to the hospital, be hospitalized, and need a bunch of drugs? But really they're getting peddled from like these wellness brands. They're making billions more dollars than any of like the pharma stuff by selling you supplements and things to keep you well, like versus immunizations. Like, we're not getting any money for that. Right. What incentive would I have for that? Like, wouldn't I need you to come to the hospital so I can provide you care? But I'm trying to keep you out of the hospital.
Right. So you didn't like science and math growing up?
No, I did. I'm saying so.
Okay.
I was saying somebody's relatable post was like, I leave science and math to all the people who love science and math. And I'm like, thank you for saying trust us, and like you didn't like this, and so and that you knew this was hard and it wasn't for you, so you believe those of us who liked this and thought it was fun.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, math was not my thing, but science was. Science is a level of reading comprehension and common sense.
Yeah.
For at least for the casual layman.
Yeah.
Yes. And the thing is, people don't like to read anymore.
No.
Not really.
Yeah, I literally posted today about false equivalence and the fact that people think that you can put studies side by side and say, well, here's this one study. And it's like, no, that's not how science works. Like, reliability comes from being able to reproduce a study and then say this brought up to this because of this. And typically we agree. We don't ever hold up that other article like, well, that one outlier article. It's like, no, it didn't prove to be reliable. We couldn't reproduce it. It's not generalizable. That's not how science works.
Right. And the whole
support something they already believe in. It's like, that's not how this works.
And the whole correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation. Are you familiar with the flying spaghetti monster?
Yes.
And the whole pirates are the cause for global warming.
Oh goodness, not them, but no.
Because if you go with causation directly or correlation directly is equal to causation, pirates have been slowly going away at the same rate as global warming has been increasing. So they're like, the lack of pirates is causing global warming.
Oh yeah, the same thing with like every summer, like people are eating water. Ice cream sales go up. People are like, there's more shark attacks.
Yeah.
And so it's like, clearly somebody's like, didn't you all know like sharks like ice cream? People stop selling ice cream, and there'll be and it's like, no, what's happening at the same time is warmer weather. People outside, they're at the beach. Like it's like ice cream sales are not causing more shark attacks. So it's just
exactly, yeah.
Like you said, like Lewis said, literacy. I actually wrote about that for the back matter. So I've been writing the back matter for this current Bitterroot run. So the first Bitterroot comic series by Image Comics was put out in 2018. And they actually won an Eisner, multiple Eisners for Best Continuing Series. And so this run takes place during the first one took place during the Harlem Renaissance. This one's during the Civil Rights Movement. And so one of the back matter essays that I wrote, I got to interview Dr. Kimyana Burke, and she's like an education policy expert, like nationwide. And so she helped improve literacy rates in Mississippi. And so one of the best parts of that conversation was talking about graphic narratives, comics, because it's words and sequential art. And so it's really good for multimodal learning. And she talked about how she's done work around the science of reading and talk to parents and educators about, and policy experts about being able to meet children and just readers of all age where they are, and that if this is your thing. I mean, I'm like, has people ever read a comic book? Have you seen the words in comics? Like, these are some like multi-syllable words, some higher, level thinking words and language. Not just for kids, but again, readers of all ages. That's why we say comics are for everybody. But that was probably one of my favorite parts of the back matter in that conversation, was getting to talk about the science of reading and literacy and how important comics and graphic narratives are for readers, including emerging readers.
And people love to throw, there's big words in comics, and people love to throw around onomatopoeia. They love that.
I mean, in Bitterroot, the character Berg Manigo, he's one of my favorites. He says indubitably a lot.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize that the U.S. military implemented comics as a learning tool for the soldiers.
Right.
Back in, I'm not sure what war it was, but it was one of the wars. They implemented comics as a learning tool.
Partly in World War II, and then again, Eisner did it in the 50s for different types of instructional manual type comics on how to, understand how to tear apart and rebuild your weapon or your vehicles or whatever for combat purposes when you're on, when you're out in the field. He did a lot of that. 60s was both military and the educated dissenter, I guess you could say, concerned citizen dissenter, trying to discuss both points of view. There were comics that were done about that. Gil Kane did some of that. We've always had these type of educational things, and they're always seem to be overlooked in the history of our industry because we don't. The majority of fandom, comics are for escapism. I don't want to learn anything. I just want to escape the world and just have fun. But why can't you have both?
Yeah. And comics have always been used for protests and to talk about social issues. And you think about Archie comics. So when people are like, oh, everything's all political now. And it's like, have you been reading comic books? Like,
Comics have always been political. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, again, we're talking with Dr. Ebony Toussaint, registered nurse, creator of Crash Cart, which we'll get to in just a few moments. It's a Webtoons comic series about basically her life as a nurse in a trauma center and dealing with what you do with heart attack patient, basically. Yeah. But, showing that kind of scenario, but also co-host with, what is Karla's last name again?
Medrano,
thank you. Of the Ororo Podcast. Now, the Ororo Podcast, I'm going to give you guys the link to that again. This particular channel, everybody who ever talks about the lack of representation in comics news or comics podcasting with Black creators, go to this channel. You're going to find not just the well-known Black creators, you're going to find a lot of extremely educated individuals who did and have done products for the industry over the last 20, 30 years that give a different insight to what is going on in our industry and why. And that's kind of why I thought was part of why you guys made that podcast, was to give a little more representation. Was that kind of a pushback against the lack of Black, shall we say, in a lot of media podcasting and representation in comics, you think?
I mean, again, we're just Just 2 friends, 2 nurses, 2 wives, 2 moms. But I would say yes, in part, yeah. Not the whole reason, the entire reason.
Oh, no, not the whole reason.
Yeah. But just us having fun, but absolutely. I think a big part of me being on the academic side of things, like Carla's always like, Dr. Ebony, we got to make sure we talk about this. And so I really wanted to make sure in season 1, for example, we had Dr. Kiana Whitted. And so her and I, we co-manage a comic book club here called, I affectionately call us the Nerdy South. And so we both are on the academic side. She's like done work with the International Comic Arts Forum. She's also on the board for Megascope, which is a line of like diverse voices through Abrams Comic Arts. So shout out to them because they have done a lot of work with the adaptation of the Parable of Sower novel, graphic novels.
Yes.
Keeper by Tananarive Due. They've done a lot of great work in terms of graphic novel adaptations. But yeah, I had Dr. Kiana Whitted on because I thought it was really important to hear her talk about her work doing comics focused on like the United States South, because we're both proud daughters of the American South. And just talking to her about her work on EC Comics, race and shock and social protest. She's also done representation in comics, like specifically during like the Golden Age and things like that. We also got to talk again Southern comics and like her love of Swamp Thing. And so we thought it was very important early on so people know like, hey, what are comic studies? Because a lot of, I think, nerds don't know that there's this whole discipline and commitment to comic studies, which I guess would be a subset sort of like maybe American studies or cultural studies or pop culture, things like that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of comics as literature that's been presented, but then there are those of us like Dr. Randy Duncan. You may have heard of Dr. Duncan. There's other people who are more historian culturally and talk about different books and how they affected cultural representation for different eras in different parts of the country. There's people like myself who talked about the Native American comics, and there's also I can't remember the name of the author right now, but there's an actual book called Indigenous Comics, and talks about the different indigenous cultures and how that's all parlayed not just from what we represent culturally in Indians, but how superheroes as a genre has taken from the cultural mythologies of the different tribes and parlayed that into a more generalized form.
Yeah.
And that's also that hasn't been demonstrated so much more with your cultures, but it's there as well.
Yeah.
And what happens more often in American society is we try to generalize it and make it something where we want you to like forego your individualisms and just become American, whatever American is supposed to mean. We're not that, though. We are a combination of all the different cultures from all over the world that have come to live in this country over the centuries.
Yeah. And
you can't just throw away your historical culture to form something new, because that's throwing away you can't throw away history.
Right.
Wherever it's from, you cannot throw it away. You have to learn from it in order to evolve as a society.
Agreed.
And unfortunately, we have had that struggle of identity is what it is to be an American versus understanding that there are, Italian Americans. There's, Native American. Well, Native American could be Chippewa, it can be Shoshone, it can be Cherokee, it can be Seminole, it can be all those different. There's over 300 different cultures in Native American tribes. I keep forgetting how to say your culture.
Oh yeah. So but even being a research scientist, having to explain to people like my nationality is American, my race is Black, and my ethnic group is Gullah Geechee.
Gullah Geechee, exactly, right. Yeah, but the Gullah Geechee is still part of who you are. It's part of your culture, and you shouldn't be forced to throw that away to say, "Yeah, I'm American," or "Yeah, I'm part of this." That is part of who you are. You shouldn't be forced to throw that away. And we've lived in a society that wants to just disavow all that and just be this.
Right. Even I'm in a multi-diasporic household. Me and Carla both are. So her husband is Mexican and my husband's from Dominica. And so even within that, we have different languages, different food ways, and it just makes us all more richer for that, learning about his perspective. And of course, his family came here as immigrants. And so he grew up in New York. So even just regional differences, like I'm a Southerner through and through, and he's a New Yorker. That's like a whole different world up there. Me being super rural, super isolated on the Sea Islands, and him being super urban and maybe taking the bus and train at like 10 years old. And I'm like, what, 10? I was flying down a dirt road on the back of a, flatbed truck or something, but not taking a public train or anything.
Well, it's not just that. It's the whole societal level of speed of life, shall we say? Yeah. When you're in New York, everything is. When you're in the rural South, it can be like, you need to get something done. Well, that's nice, but we've got.
When you're in the rural South, the day can last 48 hours. So
or I'm down the road, and down the road's like 40 minutes or something.
Yeah,
It's a very interesting type of because it's not that there isn't a sense of urgency in the South. You can have that, but when you live in an urban society, everything is urgent. Yeah. Everything has to be done now. And that puts a type of stress on your person that you don't even realize is happening until you were taken out of that environment and everybody else is slowed down. And you're like, why is everybody not going? Because you don't need to go that fast.
Right. And the big, even the cultural difference between the United States and Europe, they are Europeans think we're insane because of our work ethic.
The concept of loitering, you're loitering, you're standing around doing nothing. Who are you? Show your ID. And it's like, I'm just sitting on a bench enjoying the sunset. I saw a post about this recently. Someone said they were literally arrested across from their home because they left their door open and they didn't have ID. And they were just enjoying the sunset and the breeze. There's somebody from Europe. They were just walking around. And they're like, "Who are you, random person?" Like, I'm just taking a walk. Or even the concept of having a to-go cup, and they're sitting down. They're at cafes for hours talking and laughing and reading books and just having conversation. But we're eating in our car at a stoplight on the way to do the next thing and rushing to and fro. And it's like, this is not real life. We have to slow down. Our nervous systems cannot take it. And we wonder why everybody's, a ball of nerves and having to go to therapy and trying to medicate it in various ways. Whatever your medicine or poison is, that's what people are doing.
And then this little thing right here.
The sad box. The box of sadness.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is such a stress thing that,
But hopefully in these spaces, that's what me and Karla are here for as nurses, everyone to talk about these different health topics, whether it's, I have a colleague, Dr. Felix Morton, who's talking about, he's using comics for mental health, specifically focused on Black men. He's talking about Wakanda and Black Panther and probably other examples. Sorry, Dr. Morton, if I don't get it all correct. But he's being able to use comics in these different ways to start these conversations. And I want to say, actually, somebody can correct me later, maybe in the comments or somewhere, but mental health is probably one of the biggest area used for comics and graphic narratives. I know Graphic Medicine Society, they're really big up in Boston, especially Boston University. And I know they're talking about horror and healing. And so I also write at the intersection of horror and horror comics as well. And so I've been talking a lot about sinners. So anybody who knows me knows how much I love horror and especially vampires. And I've been talking about sinners all year. I've been on various panels, hoping to talk about sinners at the Popular Culture Association meeting in the spring. And I'm hoping to talk about sinners at San Diego next year. And so Black wisdom in comics and popular culture. We got Blade. So it's going to be, I'm hoping it's going to be a good time.
So the comics focused on mental health for Black men. There is a very recognizable dearth of focus on mental health for Black men in the United States. So I really, I think that's fantastic that there is a comic and that there is focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, just that their socialization is different. I'm learning, just me being married to a Black man, like just trying to understand men better for just being in a very religious, very rural space growing up. Like women were to be seen and not heard. You did not keep company with men. And I was a band geek. And so I played flute and percussion. And so my interaction with men mainly was, I'm telling you what to do. You're in my section, line up, clean your spats. Where's your sheet music? Even nowadays, I learned that kids are reading the music on their phones.
Baritone, 12 years band school. So
even now they're marching and they're using their phones. And I was like, we did not have to go through in the rain.
No, with like back in the 80s, like
with the sheet music getting wet. Like
yeah.
For you to have it on your phone. Ew.
I miss being able to just, disappear riding your bike for hours. Like nobody knew where you were. As long as you're back by the time the streetlights were on, it's all good.
I was just processing that with my husband this week. I was like, when I actually went back home recently and I drove down the road to where the park was from where we lived, I was like, this is kind of far. Our parents couldn't see. I mean, it was not far, but it was enough distance where I was like, I don't know if I let my babies go here by themselves. But we take our skates, we take our bikes. I was like, I don't think we even had snacks or water. I mean, we drank out of the fountain at the park or something, but we got burnt up on the slides. We were spinning around on that thing where you could die and fly off of it and nobody cared. I was like, I'm starting to question the 80s and 90s a lot.
Well, it was great because we were kids, like we could fly over the handlebars of our bike and skid 10 feet down the road and
no first aid, right? No first aid, no band.
Yeah, and we're fine. And nowadays, like we sleep wrong in the bed and we're like, oh my God, I need a week off of work.
Yeah, but you're a lot different at our age than we were back then, too.
Right, yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I can remember like 13 miles away from my house, I think I rode to go to a store one time, and I didn't realize it was that far away. It takes a while to go 13 miles one way.
Yeah, it does. Yep.
Even on a bike,
It's a half marathon.
Yeah. So it is a marathon when you get done because you gotta go back home.
Just one more quick question. Have you ever thought of pitching like DC to do like comic books specific for like doctors' offices that focus on health issues?
I have not thought to do that. No. I mean, my own imprint, Hellcat Comics, that I published the Crash Cart series through. I do hope to do more of that work. And it's called Hellcat Comics because of my grandmother. She told me a story right before she passed 10 years ago. I didn't know until her funeral that she was in like an all-girls rock group and she had a juke joint, smoked cigarettes, carried a razor blade. I was like, who is that? I knew Southern Baptist granny, Jesus, holy roller life, choir robe, sewing, taught me to sew, cook, all the things. But I realized what a dynamic woman she was when she passed. And so I've been trying to reclaim that part of her story because I think it's just as important as like the holy roller choir robe.
Right. Granny was a badass.
Right. So thus came Hellcat Comics because she said she was a Hellcat. And I wrote a short part of it in the South Carolina Black Women's Writers Anthology that came out. And so I'm hoping to turn that into a graphic narrative. And so that actually will include some of how nurses, specifically Black women, provided aid during the civil rights movement at different sit-ins and marches and protests, because a lot of people don't know that. So nurses were there to provide aid from the dogs or fire hoses or beatings and things like that. And at the time, there weren't many schools in the United States that accepted Black nurses in the 60s. And so it's kind of a critical fabulation, thanks to Saidiya Hartman for that language. It'll be those certain parts of her life, but taking liberties with it because she didn't get to go to nursing school. But if she did, just her and her all-girls rock group being able to tour the country on the Chitlin circuit, but also providing aid at different civil rights, important parts of the civil rights movement. So I'm hoping to be able to tell that story soon, connect with an agent. But your suggestions are incredible. I did not think DC might be interested in that. I mean, something down the line, I do hope to be able to write Night Nurse for Marvel.
Okay.
As well, me and Carla. Carla, I haven't even told Carla that yet, but I really want us
What
to.
I would do, depending on how you want to talk about that storyline, is the new Vertigo. Find out who's editing that stuff and if they want to go in that route.
DC Vertigo?
Yeah, DC Vertigo. They just relaunched it.
I didn't know that. Shelley Bond's been our editor on Bitterroot, and so she was the editor there for a while. I might see if she
yeah, but she's not working at DC these days. As far
as
no.
But she might have connections. So
see, but then again, I would, if you know Shelley, I would talk to her about that and just see what she would say about maybe getting in touch with Karen for Burger Books, Dark Horse, or the Abrams.
Oh, yeah, I know the Abrams folks. Yeah, I mentioned John Jennings. He did our logo for Ororo Comics Podcast, and he's one of my good friends and mentors since we both are into horror. He turned him and Stanford Carpenter, Dr. Stanford Carpenter, they coined the term ethnogothic. And so that's the work they've been doing, like the conjure punk space as well. But yeah, Charlie and those folks, Abrams, Jack, shout out to them. Got to hang out with those guys at the Eisners. So they invited me as their guest to be with them at the Eisners this year. So that was really fun. So they've been really, really great people. And that's what I was saying. John Jennings does the Megascope line underneath the Abrams Comic Arts. Y'all know this probably.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I know it, but Chris doesn't.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, it's just because it's a small, I feel like we're still like a small world, like even within the comic space, especially if you're like comic studies or you're talking about the different imprints. But yeah.
Well, see, most comic fans and even a lot of people who work in comics, they know like the very
surface
layer. They don't know all the different levels. Me having been an editor, being a publisher, being a talent scout, having to do all that behind the scenes stuff for 30 years, I know it. Chris is a colorist.
Cool.
And so he knows, production a little bit. He knows, different things about the printing side of it, but he doesn't necessarily know the managerial stuff the way I do.
Right. So, although I do thoroughly love comic book history, so
yes, you do. That's one of the reasons why you're here, buddy.
Cool. So very nice getting to know you, Chris.
Yes,
awesome.
Yes, very
so
nice.
You make magic with your hands. So you play you said baritone.
Yeah.
And you do colors. So you make magic with your hands then.
And I was a cook in the military, and I've been a cook for 35, 40 years. So.
Oh, you might love my pop-pops. So my mom's side of the family is from New Orleans, Louisiana. And so one of the cool things, he's a Vietnam War veteran, so I'm from a Marine Corps family. And one of the fun facts he told me recently when I visited him a few months ago was that his mom used to be a seamstress, and she had a lot of comics in the shop. And so I thought that was really cool because comics used to be everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you talk about the military having them. They're on the newsstands. They're when you go into grocery places, and the fact that they were just in his mom's seamstress shop, or it could be at the laundromat or wherever. The fact that they used to be more interwoven into society. And so, shout out to our local comic shops. So somebody pointed out, but how you have to specifically go there to a comic shop to get one.
Right.
Specifically searching for that versus it just being.
I miss the spinner racks in 7-Eleven. I really do miss that, and the local convenience stores. Because that's what I grew up with. So we didn't have a comic shop when I was growing up.
What got you into colors? Do you mind me asking?
I have a degree in computer animation. And we were working. We were doing some projects in a lab. And my buddy next to me was coloring a Spawn page. Taking a break, coloring a Spawn page. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm coloring. I had no idea that, that's how it worked. And that's what got me into it.
Nice. I didn't even think about how the colors set the tone for the story. So when I mentioned Crash Cart being a style after a retro classic horror, and I was like, I want this to feel like when my grandfather read it, he was like, baby, I'm scared. Was it meant to be scary? And I was like, yes, the guy dies at the end, pop, pop. Like, I'm sorry, but you know, we can't save everybody for various reasons. Mm-hmm. And when Alex was talking to me about the colors and making it look and feel that red light in that room in the hospital, and I felt it from the colors, and I hadn't thought about that. Like, if we had more brighter, more cheery colors, it wouldn't match a heart attack, right?
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that color is cultural too. Colors that evoke emotions here in the US aren't the same colors that evoke emotions over in like Japan. Like over there, white in the US, that means purity. Over there, white is symbolic of death.
Oh, and isn't red like a more of a lucky, or because like that's a color like the Lunar New Year and stuff?
Yeah. So it's a whole different. It's all cultural.
You see, red, I'm thinking blood and like stabby stab, like.
Okay. Speaking of your comic,
blood and stabby stab.
Yes, this is the. Hold on a second. Let me go ahead and get the.
And we are working on new episodes for like next year. So we got some great episodes coming up on other cardiometabolic conditions. So for example, there'll be a bad alert. If people notice the end of this one, which is actually what happened in real life, after we got done running that code, we got a bad alert. So bad alert is brain attack, which is a stroke. Heart attack is right. Stroke is for the brain attack. So there'll be a bad alert next year, and there'll also be hyperglycemia. So somebody they have type 2 diabetes, and they're what we have to do when they have a hyperglycemic episode, and they maybe have to be hospitalized. And so
this came out in October of this year. It's called Code STEMI. This is the first story.
And this is free to read on Webtoons. And so, can you clear up some of the misinformation about defibrillators? People automatically assume that it's meant to start a heart that has stopped, and typically that's not the case, as far as I know. It's to shock the heart into a regular rhythm.
Exactly. So, those of us, and so I mentioned ACLS, which is Advanced Cardiac Life Support. So all of us that are in emergency and trauma settings, we have to be trained for ACLS preparations, as well as PALS, Pediatric Advanced Life Support, and BLS, obviously, basic life support for healthcare providers. But you are correct. And so it is to not to restart the heart per se, but it's because there's some non-shockable rhythms, and some of those are like pulses, electric activity. We can't restart you from there. And honestly, quality chest compressions, so for cardiopulmonary resuscitation, people underestimate the utility of high quality chest compressions. And so,
right.
But yes, so we always joke and say defib for VFib, so defibrillation for ventricular fibrillation. And so you'll see that rhythm on there. And so, like you said, it's to shock you back into a non-lethal rhythm, one that is compatible with life and homeostasis. And so in this case, our person was having a STEMI, which is a ST elevated myocardial infarction. And so that is when the heart is, there's a blockage. And so that's an infarct. And then we have ischemia, typically when there's some oxygen deprivation, but it's not by a blockage. And so in this case, we can see atherosclerosis. There's plaque buildup in the arteries. And so I wanted to show people some of the pathophysiology, like the background of maybe this is why we couldn't save this person, for example. Especially in this case, you usually have to get these patients to a cath lab. So for catheterization, where we insert a balloon in your heart. So I used to work at the heart hospital as well. And there's different sizes of balloons, right? I think there's like 7 or so. And sometimes a stent is placed, but sometimes it's just enough to open up that artery and like flatten the plaque against the vessel itself to restore the blood flow that way. The heart's a muscle, and it's also a thing to learn that aerobic activity can also bridge new pathways on your muscle and create new pathways around maybe areas where there isn't necessarily restored blood flow and doesn't, like ischemia, for example. If you have some minor blockages, you're able to actually create new pathways in your heart. The heart is actually absolutely incredible. But yes, I wanted people to see life packs and see all that we do with them. It's also, this is meant to be a learning tool, not just for practicing clinicians, like physicians or nurses, but for the general public as well as nursing students. So I wanted people to see the pad placement. So everything is accurate here, to see the lead placement as well from the defibrillator.
Mhm.
I wanted the students to be able to talk about, like, what are the vitals on even the machine that you can see, what are the vitals looking like, and what would we do to intervene for those specific vitals. And so it shows his oxygenation level there. It shows the blood pressure there, the heart rate. What does that mean individually, and what does that mean collective? So asking students, like, hey, his heart rate's over 150. What does that mean? What do we do for that typically if that was just his only problem? Same thing with that oxygenation. What do we do if that was their only problem? Same thing separately for the blood pressure, just isolated. What do we do with the systolic of 47? Same thing with calling out clear. So we say clear, everybody clear, question mark, and then everyone moves their hands, you shock them. So even talking about,
for example, you've got SpO2 63. What is that?
So that's the oxygenation. And so that doesn't tell us how well your body is using the oxygen. It just tells us how much is available for use. And so normal is 95% to 100. Typically, if we have a COPD patient, it's okay if they're like at 89, 90, 91, maybe even 88. But anything lower than 95, we're going to at least put you on 2 liters or something. It depends. Maybe we use a non-rebreather, high flow nasal cannula. For some people, we need to put complete mask on them, especially patients that aren't good candidates for intubation, like asthmatics, because that mucus buildup in their airways and swelling and things like that. But yeah, so capnography or your waveform is a better indicator of how your body is using the oxygen, but this just tells us how much is available for use. And so we do that from a pulse oximeter. And so 62, yeah, you're crashing. Same thing, systolic 47, that's your top number of your blood pressure. That's how well your heart's pumping blood. The lower number is your diastolic. That's how well your heart's filling with blood. At a BP that low, we usually are giving you fluids. We got to bring you back up, get that heart rate going. But that heart rate, remember, that was in supraventricular tachycardic range. And so typically we give you some adenosine. We have to get you ready for cardioversion or something. But again, that's isolated. But altogether, this patient's crashing. And that's why we got the crash cart. So we got to give you some epinephrine. That's the first line of defense, and we got to shock you. And we're doing multiple rounds of that, pulse checks, compressions, and then at some point, we've tried everything. We're not getting you back. We got to call it. And so.
And for those who don't know, epinephrine is basically adrenaline speed. Yeah.
And you do not stab it into someone's heart like in the
movie. And a pulse oximeter is the little black thing that goes on your finger.
Yes. Yeah. So we're checking your pulse there, your carotid. We're checking your brachial artery, usually checking the radial pulses. We're seeing how well it's going at different levels, because sometimes it's different at different levels, and you can tell what's the last to go there. But kids were usually doing brachial, adults were doing carotid and radial pulse. But yeah, it's intense. I want people to feel that intensity to the very last bit and shaking.
Right. And if someone's having like the trying to think of the right thing, like a diabetic has nerve disorder from the situation, you also check your blood pulses on the legs.
Oh yeah, because typically, sometimes we'll make sure we check diabetics' feet always because of circulation challenges. People don't understand that diabetes is systemic inflammation, basically. So glucose crosses the blood-brain barrier, just like ETOH or alcohol. So it's systemic-wide inflammation. And if your heart's pumping harder, so I described HbA1c. So hemoglobin is the protein in your blood that transports oxygen to your tissues and organs. And so typically that HbA1c, is basically the percent of your blood. I describe it to people that's candy coated. And so now that hemoglobin has bound to glucose in your blood, it makes your blood more viscous. So it makes it harder for your heart to pump. And so what's going to happen if your heart needs that, your major organ needs it, it starts depriving your peripheries. So people start feeling tingling and numbness in their hands and their feet because your body needs to keep all your major organs here with the blood flow. And so it's harder to get to your peripheries. And so, we always have to check for pedal pulses, sometimes with the Doppler, check people's feet if they're feeling things. That's what we tell diabetics to check their feet daily, because delays wound healing. But at the same time, it makes you more prone to infections because, again, if your blood is glycosylated, it's candy coated, bacteria is going to eat on that, yum, yum. So Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I have extreme peripheral neuropathy from type 2 diabetes. So
No, you got to throw on the circulation. I have on compression garments right now. I tell people we got to restore that blood flow. Get it going. Get it going.
I have compression. They're not socks; they go over my calves, and they're wonderful. But they're bright blue, and my wife is like, "You're not going out in those, are you?" Like,
Find some
it's
different
medical. It's
colors.
medical, you know.
I have some Superman ones, but they're actually a little bit hard, thicker compression than I need, so I have to give them to my husband because I need like a medium level compression. But you can find the different numbers and amounts and find that sweet spot for your needs. And sometimes I have the ones that go over my like torso. So I alternate like ones, like you said, that are over my calf and some that are over my torso. But I tell people I got to walk it like I talk it. So if I'm sitting, or even days when I'm walking about, I'm traveling, I'm driving, flying, compression. You got to restore that blood flow to your vena cava, keep it circulating.
And it's done amazing things for my edema too. So.
Oh yeah, I'm always nervous about a deep vein like thrombus going all like PE on me, like pulmonary emboli. Like it's probably my greatest fear, and probably kidney failure of some kind. Like, so I'm always like perfusing my kidneys and drinking water. I'm like, I gotta make sure I practice.
Yeah, and a lot of diabetic medication is really hard on the kidneys.
Yeah.
So
it becomes, if you have a combination of heart and kidney, that you almost can't do anything, because if you treat the heart, you're hurting the kidneys. If you treat the kidneys, you're hurting the heart. In terms of this, it puts more stress on each organ, because one compensates for the other. So if you have to work on one, it makes the other one have to work that much more.
Oh yeah, but if we got to throw a bag of fluids at you to get you where you need to be, we'll do that first and diurese you later and pull all the water off later. So yeah, definitely.
So another thing I wanted to bring up is, like, I have an extreme fear of intubation. Like, because I've had 2 loved ones who were intubated, and basically their lungs turned to cement.
So there's, is it the ventilator acquired pneumonia they were about? Because we do have VAP bundles and like prophylaxis where we can prevent permanent damage, but there is like ventilator associated pneumonia that can happen sometimes, because it's doing the work of breathing for you.
Right.
So there are protocols for that. I would say that probably is more care for our critical care nurses in the ICU.
That's where it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are typically, I will say we don't intubate you unless you are declining and you're not compensating well, or either you're crashing. So it's like a last line. We will do high flow nasal cannula, non-rebreather. We'll try to put you on a mask, anything before intubation. Like, again, unless you're absolutely crashing, it's a last line of defense. So we don't just go to intubation unless you're just not able to properly exchange, your ventilation ratio is off. And you're just not able to exchange oxygen well. That is our last line of defense. We got to get you breathing. But it definitely shouldn't be long. They should wean people off. There's, like I said, there's protocols. There's different things that you can do while people are on the ventilator to be sure that you can wean them off well and they can breathe on their own. So I'm not sure the trauma that they sustained. That's also super important. I mainly had to intubate people after like a pneumothorax or hemothorax. They got like blood in their thoracic cavity, and like after like a motor vehicle accident or something like that. Right. Usually it's like a severe trauma where we've had to intubate people. I've had patients that crashed 3 times and they had to be intubated. Like I said, you get to a point where they're not able to breathe on their own. I mean, I will also say one of the things in the ER that I've seen, I could probably speak for most emergency room clinicians, whether physicians or nurses or respiratory social work on this, is that the amount of times that we intervene on patients that probably should not have been brought to the emergency room. Like they were already dead or dying or should have had allowed natural death or DNR. Right. And it sounds like a morbid thing to say, and it's not about like not wanting to provide certain patients care. It's not that. It's just there's the ethical balance of when is it inappropriate? Like, should I not be I think all of us have struggled with it. We're looking each other in the eyes and we're like, the interventions that we're doing on this patient are way more harsh than the more compassionate thing would be to allow them to
exactly
think peacefully and not. But I will say I've been trained by some damn good clinicians, and I'm of the mindset, because of the people that train me, so I had one trainer, shout out to Paul. He would say, like, get your stuff done before families come in the room. Another one, shout out to Josh. He's like, no, let them in. Like, as soon as we get a patient back there, let the family in so you can see everything that we're doing. And does it help everybody? No. But because some people start crying, they're frantic, they're not able to see that. But for the most part, 90% plus of the time, they're appreciative because they see every single thing that you're doing for their relative. And
they may not have the ability to comprehend the actions you're taking, but they see you're taking action.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the point. Having been a caregiver for both my grandparent and my parents for pretty much since I was 9, and I'm 53. So I've had to deal with it all my time. I've seen both of those things, and there's a time, like, my mother had a heart attack and stroke combination. She arrived DOA. She'd been probably passed out, gone, because I did not have time to get her to an EMT. We were too far away from a hospital to get services. She'd have died before they got her to the hospital. I got within 2 blocks of the hospital driving her myself. And so I was like, maybe 3 minutes at the most. And, they got her in, they brought her back. But she was basically comatose for another 12 weeks before she came back. And when she did finally wake up out of it, there was brain damage. She didn't have the same kind of, she had memory loss. She had certain nerve things that had to be, she had to go through therapy for years to get things back. And it wasn't complete ever, afterwards. Should we have let her go? If I'm being honest, after having to be a caregiver for all the years after she survived, yes, it might have been better in certain ways had she not been brought back. Because it brought a lot of emotional and physiological and psychological stresses, not only to her, but to me as a caregiver, to my father. But at the same time, when she finally did pass, and she was having both the heart and the kidneys go at the same time, basically, that's what I was talking about. If you treat one, you're gonna kill the other. That it was very hard because she was not ready to go. She had not made peace with it yet, but she knew she didn't have, there was no choice, and I don't remember exactly why it happened, but we had stepped out of the room to talk to the doctor about that point, and I mean, down to 10 seconds and gone. She was like, "Yep, they've given up." I don't know if it was a thing that she thought we'd given up on her or what, but that was kind of what happened. It was like, okay, we've accepted, so it was hard, because you don't know what she was thinking, because she was at a point where she couldn't communicate right at the end. Mm-hmm. And, that kind of messed my dad up for a while, but I was like, we did everything we knew how. She was around this earth for 13 years longer than she probably should have been.
I will say the cases that I'm referring to, again, sorry for your loss. Sorry about your mom. Thank you for sharing that. The cases that I'm referring to are like 90-plus-year-old meemaws. Mm-hmm. So they're from the nursing home, or they've been incapacitated in some way for like the past few years. Again, as like jarring as this may sound to the general public, it's a lot of these people, they have power of attorneys. They're not able to speak for themselves. Mm-hmm. shout out to nursing home staff. I'm sure they're doing their best. They're probably overworked, underpaid, and there's too many patients to the provider.
They are.
But
35 people to 2 nursing assistants.
And I think they're changing the regulations federally now. And I'm like, people do not send your relatives to nursing home right now. If they're changing this and they're taking it off the standards that they currently have in place, don't send your relatives there. They're going to die. Because it's just those shape that we get patients from nursing homes in the ER, we would know where someone's coming from based on their presentation. Like we know what injuries to look out for if they're coming from a nursing home. And me and my sister have a pact that we will never send our parents to a nursing home. Like it's no judgment to anybody who's done that. Just so when I say that we're talking about intervening on people that are like,
well, when we say that, folks, keep in mind she's a professional nurse. Chris has worked in nursing homes and worked in that facility. I've been around them, and that's why I've spent most 40 past years being a caregiver for my relatives, is because different relatives in my family were sent to nursing homes, and we saw the conditions and saw what happened to them. And my mom was like, no, you're not, we'll take care of him until he's gone. We'll do this, we'll do that. So that was just how I was raised from a very small child. Most people who are in that environment in society don't have exposure to this, and they don't understand the day-to-day existence of what that environment is and what the stresses are of those environments are. And what is perceived and what is presented to the public is not the entirety of what happens. And it's the same thing when you watch a TV show. You were talking recently about just a few minutes ago about intubation. You don't do it. What's the first thing that you almost always hear on a freaking medical show? Intubate the patient now, type crap. That's one of the last things you do. But it's like within the first 30 seconds of a person not gonna give me the thing. I got to intubate them. Why? Because it's exciting. That has nothing to do with the realities of medicine. And a lot of times, even though we're working very quickly in the moment, it looks like people
right
on a TV screen, and they don't understand what all you're doing and what that means. There's no excitement to the drama of the TV series. So they do these other things that are like the most extreme things as though they're normal. They're not. And that's why we kind of get this weird perception of what worlds are around us. But so thank you for being on the show, Ebony. And when is the next? You said next year you're going to put some new episodes of Crash Cart out.
Yes. So I'm staying in the cardiometabolic disorder realm because that's what's impacting a lot of people, and I think more people want to know about. So I mentioned hyperglycemia from type 2 diabetes. Like, how do we treat that in the ER, and what constitutes an emergency? Like, and just talking to people about different numbers and things to look out for. And then also a brain attack, a bad alert. So being able to talk to people about stroke, the symptoms of a stroke, and just what happens when people delay care. We can't do emergency protocol if you bring someone the next day. For example, we can't administer certain therapies. And the blockage in the brain now, we say time is brain. That blockage would have been so long now that we maybe can't restore the blood flow and prevent long-term deficits. And so it depends on what part of the brain is blocked will be the deficit presentation that patients will have. And so just that makes strokes much more complex. And we're in the stroke belt here in South Carolina. And so I'm stroke certified through the National Institutes for Health. I have the National Institute of Health has a stroke scale that we have to be certified on to be like a designated stroke center and things like that through the American Heart Association. So a certain number of your providers have to have that. So I think I'm going to stick with cardiometabolic disorders. And so I'll be working with Jeremy Darby to bring y'all those episodes in this series. And we'll probably do other series. And I think I'm going to fan source some material that people want to see. Like, do people want to see like sickle cell crises or see influenza, things like that? I know we got measles going on. I love pediatrics. I love that rotation. And I love my peds patients in the ER, but I don't specifically just focus on peds. But I wonder if their parents want to see some of that right now, since we're having to talk about measles and different immunizations.
who in the hell would have thought that in 2025 we would see a resurgence of measles of all things because of you know who.
We had an older, like one of our oldest providers in the ER, I want to say it was like in his like 70s, and he couldn't remember measles. So we all were like, we had to issue out guidance and more training on measles. So the fact that people didn't see it as like, y'all, this is alarming, that clinicians have to be being trained for something that was
trained or retrained, right?
Decades ago. We had a death.
It was wiped out, basically. Yeah.
It's gone. So,
and this strain is not the clinical strain of years ago either. This is a strain that is partially evolved because of COVID, and partially, from what I understand of it, I'm not fully studied in it by any means, but I've heard that there's an uptick in chickenpox because of the measles as well.
Varicella. Yeah, we're having to talk to people just again about even like pertussis and like whooping cough, and like having to explain to people why they should get their kids. Like if you've seen a baby with whooping cough, for example, you will know those like intercostal retractions and that sound, that struggle to breathe. If you see an infant with that, there's no way you decline an immunization. So just having to explain to parents, even a child dying of measles and anything that's vaccine preventable, it's cruel. It's extremely cruel and unkind. And it's like there's millions of people who've received these immunizations over decades long of research, and benefits fully outweigh any risks or minimal risks for associate. Again, there's
imagined risks.
That'll be much more better. Again, and this isn't to minimize any vaccine adverse events, but even that reporting system is flawed. The VAERS system of reporting through the CDC. And again, most clinicians and scientists, we know these things because we're trained in these areas. And so it's not to diminish any outliers, things that happen, but it's just to say that, hey,
there's always outlying situations and circumstances that need to be taken into consideration on the whole.
And they're rare and few and far between. Again, if someone has an event that's associated with immunization, again, the goal is that at least they're going to be alive, and then you can deal with any type of complications or things like that. But measles, dying of measles is entirely preventable.
Yeah.
So it's just extremely sad that we're having to have these conversations. So yeah, I'll crowdsource and see what types of topics that people want to see in the nerd space. And so I'm definitely excited to talk about, like I said, like things outside of cardiometabolic disease. I'll see what people want to do with those, because that's the world I live in. But maybe, like I said, people maybe want to hear about sickle cell or hear about measles and stuff like that. So that'd be kind of cool.
Well, again, it's interesting because when you do this kind of material, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for
information.
Yeah. Well, not just information. I mean, yeah, you're giving. It's more heartfelt. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, nerds are my people, and so I just want to keep us healthy and happy. And even doing a comic on maybe one of the series will be on mental health. Like I said, there's already a lot out there about those, so that's why I'm trying to keep it like maybe see the other diseases people want. I think there's a famous cosplayer, for example, she has PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and that's been like wreaking havoc on her life and things like that. So just being able to talk and see what topics nerds want to talk about, because like I said, y'all are my people. And so I just want to keep us all healthy and happy and safe. And
Well, I would like to see, being a huge horror fan myself, I would love to see an episode on night terrors.
Ooh.
And, the shadow people. If you're familiar with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Night terrors and shadow people. Okay.
I had an episode. I was on a medication. And I woke up wide awake, and there's three prominent figures. There's the Hat Man, there's the Shadow, and then there's the Hag. The Hag crawled up my body, in my face. Yeah, it was terrifying.
Was this a first generation antipsychotic?
It was Celexa.
Okay, I gotta see the drug name. That's a brand name. Sorry, I don't know the drug name.
Yeah, I just know it was Celexa. Terrifying stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, that would be night terrors aren't just based on drug reactions, but yeah, that's
but that caused it for me. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the hallucinations are very common. That's why I asked if it was first generation antipsychotic, because those typically the FGAs, they cause hallucination and other like extrapyramidal symptoms, and so those are rarely prescribed anymore. So yeah, and I'm not specifically psych, but yeah, I know they give some of the.
This was like 12 years ago. So
yeah.
It probably was an early, like psychotic or antipsychotic.
Yeah, guidelines change like every 3 to 5 years. So it's so crazy. So yeah, 12 years. Yeah, it's been some time. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good idea. The shadow people.
I'm fascinated by it now. So, and why? Because I'd never heard of it before. I'd never ever heard of the shadow people and the hag, the hat man. So why does everybody that have night terrors exclusively see one of these three characters?
That's good. And for people to know our protocol, if you are hallucinating and doing the blood work and changing you out into paper scrubs and having to take your belongings, and it all can be, again, very scary from a patient perspective. And again, my work is for the general public and then clinicians and also students that are training to understand why are we doing this and being able to talk through some of these and have conversation. Even the use of restraints, whether chemical or physical restraints, why do we use them? What's the data show? How often do you have to check people that are in these different restraints, and one-on-one observation? What do we do for someone who's hallucinating and hearing voices? So a lot, again, these things are very scary, and it's not like TV at all. And I'm a huge fan of ER, for example. I've seen most of Grey's Anatomy, not the latest seasons. But and I think there's the newer one, The Pit, obviously everyone's been talking about, but I can't, because I've heard some clinicians say it's like re-traumatizing, and I'm like, I can't right now. If it's too real, I can't.
Yeah, I watched part of The Pit, and it's not gratuitous, but it's very intense in terms of they're really trying to show like you have to do with a patient. You've lost them. You've lost them. Here's the next one.
Yeah.
What? You ain't got time to think. This person needs you now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you don't have. It's this ability. The doctors have and nurses have to have an ability to have empathy for the person that they're working on, but also have that ability to separate yourself enough so that you can make that cut and break when you need to.
And there's been plenty of nights where I've run The Pit, and it's that's another reason I haven't watched the show yet, because I'm like, this is literally, I know it's a pun on Pittsburgh where the show is taking place, but again, The Pit is, we jokingly say, it's the armpit of the emergency room. Like, nobody wants to run The Pit, right? But I like running The Pit when I had to run it, but it's a lot, and it's again, it's like in between patients where you don't know what's going to happen, because I've had some stuff go down in The Pit where you think like, oh, I'm not running the major trauma runs tonight, but The Pit can get crazy, just like the trauma rooms. So it's just it's a lot, like you said, to have to go from one to the next, and then especially if someone thinks you're not a patient, or a patient's family member think you're not responding in a certain way, and it's like I'm not even fully thinking about you. I'm still processing this death. And a lot of people don't know, like the ER where I mainly came from, that was a trauma center. It was us who got the bodies prepared for families to say their goodbyes. It was us who got the bodies into the body bag and put the toe tag on. It was us who transported the bodies to the morgue. And then if we had to use one or multiple crash carts, I'm now replacing the crash carts. And that actually is how I got the title for Crash Cart, is because after we lost that guy that the comic's based on, it was me that went to go replace that crash cart. And I was just thinking like how crazy this is. Like, we have a bad alert and I got to restock this crash cart and get this ready for the next, if we have another code call.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yep. And even though you got the battle alert, like you said, you have to get this ready right now because someone else can come in while you're doing the other.
Yeah.
And it's always I think so many people you're in a hospital and you're waiting, and whether or not your person or yourself have been taken to the back rooms, but you're waiting to be seen. And you might be there for hours on end, but you don't necessarily see what's going on because you're in your own cubicle or you're in your own station. And I can remember the last time my dad had a problem. They didn't even have enough rooms. They had to have him sit on a gurney outside in a hallway because they had so much going on. And my dad's like, when the hell are they going to see me? I said, I don't know. I'm listening to the environment, and I know some code numbers and call signs and stuff like that, but it's not the same as actively going. But I could tell, okay, we've got 3 shot trauma patients in the area. Okay, that's coming before worrying about his foot right now. We've got someone who came in with that they already had intubated from the ambulance. That's got to be taken care of before they worry about his foot. I'm like, okay, I could tell there was like 17 patients that they had focus on right now. And he's just, and yes, he's in pain. His foot looked like almost charcoal foot. So there's a problem. But it's not life emergency. These other things can be. I don't know the parameters, so I'm just assuming that takes precedence. Most people in society don't make that connection. They're focusing on their person.
Yeah. And they're still important. And I always tell people important, urgent, emergent. So, and it sounds like your dad might have had something acute on chronic. So we might know his background, his previous medical history, and he has a chronic condition. And now this is an acute presentation based on maybe some chronic underlying stuff he's had going on for a while. It's like, okay, you had this foot thing going for a while. You can wait. And you are going to wait. I hate to tell people that all the time. I'm like, unless you are actively hemorrhaging, you are having breathing difficulty or chest pain, you're going to wait a little while. And that probably means if you don't have any of those things, you probably could go to urgent care. Again, unless you have a chronic condition, maybe it's something that we need to check out for you. Maybe you're having an acute.
Well, actually, we went to urgent care first, and they told us to go over to the ER.
And we've gotten that sometimes too. Yeah. But I always tell people, doesn't mean you're not important, but maybe it just means you're not super urgent and you're not emergent. So we got to handle those emergent people first, then the urgent, and then we're going to get to you. And it might be a little while, especially if it's an area that has like high. I worked at in the largest county in the state and the only hospital. And so that's where everybody's coming in. And so I hate to tell people, the average wait time nationwide is 4.5 hours. It's going to be 4 to 6 hours. Again, unless you are actively having a breathing emergency, hemorrhaging, or chest pain, those are like your 1s and 2s. Or you're dead and we brought you back, or you're actively dying. Like those are 1s and 2s. You're going to go your altered mental status, 1s and 2s. So it's like ESI, Emergency Severity Index triage standards protocol nationwide. And there's some challenges too. I can't, we're not perfect. So there's like this concept that we typically under triage. Again, I think mostly for chest pains and strokes and heart attacks, things like that, we're good with those. But like anything else besides that, typically we under triage because pain is very subjective. And so unless we can see it, it's going to be more difficult. And if your vitals are, say you're normal, your vitals are normal, but you've got something going on, your body's just compensating right now. And we don't know it. So it is nice to have these conversations and tell people like, hey, 1, we're human, but 2, your vitals are normal. It's not that we don't believe you, but this is your presentation, the day that we currently have. And unless you're decompensating right in front of us, we're going to put somebody else up whose vitals we can clearly tell this person, they're not compensating right now. They are on the decline. If we don't act right now, that's why there are 3 or 2. They might get to a 2 or 1 or 0 expire.
Right.
And so it's not to make anybody feel unimportant. So that's typically a conversation we have to have with patients and family members all the time. It's like, hey, man, I know it's been a couple hours. Can we get you a blanket? Can we get you some water, some snacks? And it doesn't help necessarily sometimes, but some people, it goes a long way. So we try anyway. So it's just nice to have people treat us human and not try to fight us or hate us. And we're like, we're just doing our job. I can't manufacture a room for you, another bed for you. We got somebody crashing. I can't, So we are, I tell people most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, I'm working with some damn good nurses, and especially in the emergency room. I don't, you can't be, there's no weakest links. The places I've trained, the places I've been, you can't. There's no mistake making really, because then that's a death, right? So I don't know those nurses. Maybe they exist somewhere else. I haven't worked with them. So the systems that I've worked, everybody cares about their license and their job, keeping patients alive. So I haven't seen anybody that's just like, oh, I don't care, whatever, screw you and your pain. No, we want people to live. We want them to have good experiences, and we're doing our best.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And real quick, before we do let you go, you're a horror fan.
Yes.
What genre and do you love most, and does that spill over into your comic tastes?
Yes. Thank you for that question. I love that we're in it with horror. It is always spooky season for us horror lovers. And shout out to Tanana Reed Dew, who I got to interview last year during Black Speculative Fiction Month, which is the month of October. Yes, horror probably spills over into every aspect of my life. My locker is covered in horror stickers at work. I carry Ghostface on my badge reel at work. Ghostface is very like meta, right? So that's probably my favorite like slasher like franchise.
Okay.
It would probably be Scream, followed by Nightmare on Elm Street, and then followed by Final Destination, which I know is kind of corny, but whatever. So those are probably my favorite franchises. But yes, horror absolutely goes into my comics work because I wanted Crash Cart to feel like a retro classic horror. And I really wanted people to know, when my 83-year-old grandfather told me he was terrified, I was like, yes, I want you to, yes, this is scary. A heart attack is scary. It's not sexy. It's not TV show camera, some Doc McDreamy, McSteamy saving you. It's going to be the nurses, first of all. We'll get to you first, and we're going to have to know what to do besides the doc screaming from outside of the room, like whatever, or calling the time of death, which is the thing that only they're allowed to do. But yes, I love that question. And I love comics as, to me, it's kind of like the meeting space, the convergence for all of my interests, whether it's like hoodoo and ethnobotany and science and health and just like action and thriller. Comics has like everything for everybody. And so probably one of my favorite comics actually is Upgrade Soul by Ezra, what's his name? Ezra Clayton Daniels. Am I getting his name right? It took him years to do it. And it has a really cool app which like accompanying like horror themed music. Which is so cool. If you have not read Upgrade Soul, read it, but also read it on the app with like the soundtrack. That is so cool. A comic with a soundtrack, and it's like science fiction horror. It's amazing. If you've seen the movie Splice, it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of in that similar kind of creepy, fucking crazy ass horror, thriller, whatever, suspense. But my favorite genre of horror is supernatural because I'm Gullah Geechee, folklore, ethnogothic, demons and possessions and just really spooky shit spells and so I'm like, and I will say I hate jump scares a little bit because they kind of ruin like the buildup of like horror. I mean, John Carpenter, The Thing is going to be classic, I feel like, for most people every time. I love People Under the Stairs also is one of my favorites. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street is one of my favorites as well. But yeah, I really, horror is like where it's at. I'm currently watching, my husband had never saw Black Phone, so we're watching that.
Okay.
Black Phone 2, so I got to get caught up on that. But yeah, some of my top horror, oh man, last year. Oh, but this year we got, oh my God, we got, what's the gothic horror? Frankenstein. But
oh yes, Guillermo del Toro.
Robert Eggers. What's his name? Not Robert Eggers. Is it Robert Eggers? What was the film he did last year? The gothic one. With the Count.
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu, yes.
Yeah, that was really good too. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
But this year has been really great. We've had The Monkey, we've had Weapons, we've had Sinners. It's been a great year. I like the closing out of Bloodlines. I really hope that they need to let it go. We got, Tony Todd, rest in peace.
Yes.
I think this is a great way to close out the franchise. But I've heard that I think they're going to keep it going because money, right? Money.
Right. Everything's about money.
And Weapons was so unique because it's so few films use witchcraft as the focus of the horror. So it's very, very unique film.
I like folk horror. It reminded me of like Spell and like what was it, The Skeleton Key and
yeah.
In that line. Hellboy. What was the last Hellboy? The Crooked Man?
Yeah.
So
Which was really good.
Yeah, the comic and the movie was good. I thought that. Was it the F.E. Cobb? Hellboy was really, really good. I really want to meet Mike one day. But yeah, I love horror. So yeah.
Now you mentioned Tananarive Due.
Yes.
What if I told you that I'd tried to get DC for her and her husband Stephen Barnes to do Cyborg?
Ooh.
And they just like, I'm like, are you idiots?
I think she's proven herself with The Keeper and like through Megascope, which is, I told y'all, the line underneath Abrams' comic art. And so they're actually adapting The Keeper for the screen. I mean, she teaches horror at UCLA. Like, she's amazing. She's the Him expose. Him was great, by the way. I don't know if y'all seen him.
Because originally when they did Cyborg with David F. Walker.
Yeah.
Okay. Before they did that, I was trying to get either Jeff Thorne or Tananarive and Steven to write Cyborg. And David's good. I had no problem with David.
Yeah, he's one of my good friends and mentors. I love David. I love the entire Bitterroot team, by the way. I should shout out everybody.
Right.
Chuck Brown.
Yeah, right, exactly. Thumbs up for both David and Sanford and everybody else. But I felt like his artists were, while they're exceptional artists, weren't the right fit. And I was like, this isn't really what I was looking for, And then when they finally got one of the better artists on it, then David left the book, and I forget who replaced him. And I was like, that's not the right writer. That was like, this is what DC does to me all the time. They'll give me half the equation. Like, okay, you got a writer I like, but you got an artist I don't. Now you get the writer I like, an artist I like, but you don't get the right. Like, can't you give me what I asked for?
Well, goodness, I hope you love my Superman someday. In my Sojo.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So again, Crash Cart. There's the address again.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I love the comic book community. Y'all have been so super fantastic.
Yeah.
It's an absolute pleasure getting to talk with you
tonight. And definitely go visit the Ororo Comics Podcast on YouTube as well. Wonderful interview with Tananarive Due, a whole bunch of others in there that I just thought, for the fans who sit there and say there's nobody who covers Black creators, there's nobody who covers up-and-coming creators, this is the kind of podcast you should be watching, not Perch, not Thinking Critical, not Sticky Goose.
Down, boy. Down.
Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate y'all.
Because, it's that sort of thing but and when are you gonna give us some new shows, you and Karla, for the podcast, do you think?
We are sending out invites for a big season 3. We got to go bigger, and so we got lots of fun stuff coming your way. We both are working on various projects that are major that we can't announce yet, but like, oh my god, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be so great. Especially because we ended with David Banner for season 2, so we got to come out swinging with season 3. But we have, I think we're gonna top season 2 for sure. There's only way to go. It's up.
Okay.
Fantastic.
All right, folks. Thanks for watching our show. And do you have a contact information for people who want to reach out to you?
I'm at Ebony T_PhD on Instagram and Threads, and I'm also on TikTok as well and YouTube. So you can find me Ebony T_PhD on all the things.
Say that again. Ebony T PhD.
Ebony T_PhD. Yeah.
On Instagram.
and Threads and YouTube, and I'm also on TikTok. It's at Ebony T. I'm gonna put it on there _ PhD. Boom.
Like that.
Yep. Ebony T _ PhD. Yep. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Yep.
And YouTube. Okay.
And I'm on Threads. I'm not on that other X Hell app or whatever. But.
The Muskrat Channel is what I call it.
Yeah, he calls it the Muskrat Channel.
Well, you guys are cool. I'm welcome to come back anytime. Bring my girl Karla with me, or we can do.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Talk about different comics you like and different shows. Would love to talk about horror comics every Friday night. We do horror comic, or we do our film and television. We could just talk about horror movies or whatever and stuff like that. And so yeah.
Oh, this Friday, next Friday, Friday after that, horror. I'm there. Like, say less.
Well, yeah.
Lewis has to put up with my taste in horror. So every Saturday night we do a so bad it's good horror movie night, and we just do a chat on Messenger, and we pick a movie on Tubi, because Tubi is a treasure trove.
Yes, they have it by decade too, and by type, right?
Yeah. So
on.
Every Saturday night we do that.
That's
and
him.
We kind of MST3K it. So
well, him and his other friends. I don't do that as a rule. I can do MST3K, but if I do it, he can tell you I can get really nasty.
he can rant like no other.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about just ranting. I mean, I can really get the jabs in. And do some really sarcastic stuff. So, yeah. But because if you watch last week we did the movie Escanaba in the Moonlight.
Yes. Escanaba in the Moonlight.
Yeah, it's a comedy about.
I'm from Michigan. And I'm from northern Michigan, and right above us is the UP, where Escanaba is, and it's rife with UFOs and like hoodoo voodoo and like all kinds of like crazy shit.
So anyway, we were reviewing that particular film, Escanaba in the Moonlight, and I wrote the whole shtick in the
vernacular
of the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, Canadian, or North Dakota, Fargo. Hey, how you doing? Hey,
Fargo. That was a good movie.
And he had to sit there and read that in that vernacular, in that tone for the whole podcast. And our third co-host is just sitting there going, "I knew you guys were going to do that." But this Friday we're doing James Gunn's Superman, which I have not yet watched. I'm going to watch it in a little bit.
Wait, you haven't seen Superman?
I am not a huge movie person per se, and I don't get to go to the movie theaters that much because I'm always taking care of my dad, and he doesn't want to go. So it's basically whenever I get around to it type thing, and so it was like, and my third co-host, John, didn't want to see it. So we're like, Chris and I can do Superman this week, since he's not going to be here, so.
Oh, you're going to love it.
Well, I keep saying, I don't know, but we'll find out. But yeah, I'm not a fan of Crypto to begin with. So.
He stole the show.
Monster.
He stole the show.
Oh, it's a monster.
Oh,
All right. I'm sorry. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I have to jump. I got to let my dogs out.
No worries.
Yep.
So,
speaking of dogs, it was a perfect segue.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. And then let's go ahead and, okay. Well, everybody's hanging out. So again, thanks for watching, everyone. And if you want to reach out to us on social media, Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, Twitter X, LewisBrightRaven2, DeviantArt.com/BrightRaven. Been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven, exclusively on YouTube. And my email is quothravenlbr72@gmail.com and lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. That's all we got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Thursday. That'll be my other co-host, John Morris, and I doing review night. Don't know exactly what all we've got going for sure, but we'll have plenty of stuff to review. And again, on Friday, we'll be back with Chris and I to review James Gunn's Superman. So good night, everybody. We'll see you next time. Quoth the Raven, nevermore.